Hello, beautiful people. Today is 29th of May. My name is Sahil, and welcome to Newspaper Analysis. Friends, he is Thomas Jefferson, the founding father of USA, the one who drafted the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson says, when government fears the people, there is liberty. And when the people fear the government, there is a tyranny. Now, often into the democracies, in order to establish the rule of law, fear and force is used onto the people, and a kind of terror is created into the society. And all this thing happens into the name of preserving democracy and the rule of law. But actually, that is not an example of welfarist government or democracy. Rather, that is nothing but a type of tyranny and authoritarianism. Friends, please remember this particular quote for the paper of essay as well as GS paper number 2, the constitutional values. And now let's begin with today's newspaper analysis. This is the page number 1 of the Hindu newspaper, and the first news here pertains to India China standoff in LAC. Now, from last few days, we are following this particular issue, and yesterday we had seen that the US president had offered to mediate into the dispute. However, the Ministry of External Affairs of India and Chinese Foreign Ministry had now said that the dispute will be settled through the diplomatic channels, and throughout the day the talks were going on. Now, friends, when we talk about the diplomatic channels, then there are five agreements which have been signed from 1993 to 2013. And these five agreements are very much crucial to resolve the boundary disputes. And particularly, the 2013 BDCA is one of the most comprehensive and includes the learnings from the above agreements also. So now these five pacts will be used to resolve the boundary dispute. Now, guys, one point here. In 2013 agreement, not only the boundary disputes but also the efforts taken to conserve the wildlife has also been taken. For just for your prelims, please remember this thing. Now, earlier we had seen certain locations, for example, Galwan Valley, where the Chinese troops were forbidding the Indian army. Now, what exactly is the formation and location of both the armies? That particular thing has not been made very clear. However, the peace progress is now going on. And into the times to come, the actual results will be seen. So, this was all, and now we'll move to the next. Now, guys, on page number 1, the Supreme Court had directed the railways and the state governments that no fare should be taken from the migrant workers for their bus or railway journeys. Now, this entire is a suo motu action, which means that Supreme Court, on its own behalf, had directed these particular things. Now, first of all, the Supreme Court has said that the states need to pool the expenses with respect to the fare of bus or the railways, and railways should not force the migrants to pay for the fares. And it will also be the responsibility of the railways that they should arrange the drinking water and meals for the returning migrants. Moreover, the registration process for their return journeys should be sped up so that they don't walk onto the foot. And it has been seen into the various instances that even after the registration they spend weeks or months, and then into their camps there are no shelter, no food, no water. So the registration process should be sped up, and meanwhile all these facilities should be given to them. However, when they will return to their native state, then there is a responsibility of the state government that they should provide them the health facilities, their testing, and their quarantine should be ensured. Moreover, the Supreme Court has asked that a kind of a status report should be filed as what actions have been taken by the governments at both the center and the state level, and a dedicated response and a coordinated policy is right now needed to alleviate the apathy of the migrant workers. Now, friends, can you tell that under which article number in DPSP and fundamental right these things should be done? So, please pause the video and try to think. Now, in DPSP, article number 38, 39, and 41 will come in action, because article 38 provides for creating just social and economic conditions for the welfare. Article 39 provides that the health and the strength of the workers needs to be promoted. And article number 41 talks about providing public assistance into the times of need. And with respect to fundamental right, the most important here is article number 21, which talks about right to life, but not merely the existence. Rather, a dignified life is to be given, and the scope in this particular direction was considerably widened after the Menka Gandhi case. Now there can be one more angle into this particular issue, that this could also be an example of judicial activism, where the judiciary becomes activated and many a times steps into the shoes of legislature as well as executive. Now, with respect to judicial activism, also there are certain issues. There are positives, there are as well as negative. Positive is that whenever there will be the policy logjam or apathy from the side of legislature or executive, we need the proactive involvement of the judiciary in order to uphold the rule of law. But on to the negative side, it is a breach of the theory of separation of powers, and judiciary is not entitled to do this particular thing. However, again, if we see the role of Supreme Court into the context of India, it is not only the judicial organ, but rather it is also the upholder of the fundamental rights under article number 32. So this particular thing might not entirely be called as negative or the overventurism of judiciary. It will be more or less seen into the positive light, because the Supreme Court is doing only the thing which has been mandated by the constitution. Now guys, please remember all these implications and issues for GS paper 2, because there specifically issues related to judiciary has been mentioned. Now friends, there are not much relevant news into the middle pages, so I have taken an article from the down to earth. So a kind of a situation is developing into the Arabian Sea, which could impact the monsoons in India. And as monsoons are the most important climatic phenomena in India, it becomes important for our GS1 also. Now what has happened after the development of Amphan into the Bay of Bengal? Now a kind of a low pressure is developing into the Arabian Sea. Now you might be knowing that the different pressure zones impact the flow of winds from one place to another place, and the wind from high pressure flows to the low pressure. Now guys, what is happening? The low pressure is forming into the Arabian Sea, and this is the time when the southwest monsoons also enter into India. Now there are two particular theories which are coming into this particular respect. Number one, it is being said that the low pressure will be favorable to Indian monsoons, because it will drag the winds more powerfully, just like a magnet towards India, and therefore there will be the better rains. However, there is one more theory on this particular respect, that is, if this low pressure will intensify further, then it will turn into a kind of a cyclone, which is characterized by intensely low pressure area in between where the winds spiral. By the way, we had discussed the cyclone in detail when we were discussing the Amphan. Anyhow, so if that will be the case, then it will restrict the flow of winds towards the mainland India and will hamper the monsoons. And guys, this type of thing has happened last year into the case of cyclone Vayu, which was formed in Arabian Sea due to the presence of low pressure, and from 9 June to 17 June it arrested the rainfall into the region of Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. And finally the rains resumed towards the last week of June, and because of this particular thing there was deficiency of rainfall in initial periods from 33% to 80% into the different parts of country. However, once the Vayu detracted and became weakened, the rainfall finally resumed and became even more intensified, and up to the second week of October the monsoon was still there. So guys, this particular thing can impact the patterns, and there could be certain unintended repercussions. But as I have told you earlier, on the bright side, it can improve the monsoon in India and can lead to the good effects also. However, as the low pressure will actually mature, we will see what will happen. So stay tuned on this particular development also. And now we'll move to the next. Now here's a news from PIB that a meet of Financial Stability and Development Council has held. Now guys, these type of organizations are very important for UPSC and the question on FSDC has already been asked. Now guys, first of all, what exactly happened into the meeting? The members have taken a noting of the recent conditions into the aftermath of crisis and had noted that what the action government has taken, but nothing substantial has come out of this. However, we will see that what exactly is FSDC. Now guys, there was a huge problem going on into the Indian financial sector because there are different regulators for different sector. For example, for the pension funds there is a PFRDA, then there is SEBI which looks for the stock market. After that there is IRDAI which looks for the insurance sector. But since insurance are also being used as a component of investment, so IRDAI also becomes a kind of a financial regulator. And likewise there are so many financial regulators for different sectors. Now guys, many a times there happens to be an overlap into their regions of regulations and there are disputes and contradictions, which is not good for the economy. Now in order to resolve these type of disputes, in 2008 Raghuram Rajan committee was constituted and it suggested that we should establish the Financial Stability and Development Council. Now this is a body which will be a super regulator over all these things and will work to resolve the contradictions and will ensure the cooperation. Along with it, it will also keep an eye onto the financial development and the fiscal health of the nation. Now, guys, if we see the composition of this entire body, then the finance minister will be the chairperson of the FSDC. Now, the important members here are the governor of RBI, the chairman of all the financial regulators, for example, the chairman of SEBI, IRDA, PFRDA, the chairman of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, and apart from them, there are the officials from the finance ministry also. So guys, these are the members here. Now friends, this entire is the enhanced membership. Originally, some of the members were not there. So guys, this extension of the FSDC has been made in 2018. And in this particular direction, in 2018, the Minister of State responsible for Department of Economic Affairs, then the Revenue Secretary, the Secretary of Department of Electronic and Information Technology, and the Chairperson for Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India were included here. So please keep them into your mind. And now we'll move to the next news. Now, here's a news where the government has said that the trade and consumption of liquor is not a fundamental right. Now, guys, when we see the background, then petitions were filed that the government has levied a 70% extra fees into the present crisis onto the alcohol. And this particular thing is breaching the fundamental right given under Article number 19, subclause 1, subclause G, which guarantees the free trade and profession. Now, the government had justified its move and said that the consumption and trade of liquor has an element of privilege. It is not a necessity. Therefore, given the circumstances, the government has a power that it can regulate the fundamental rights. Therefore, it has the power that it can levy such kind of fees also. Now, the issue is this, that the state government's revenue has dried up and the 90% of revenue has gone because of the slowdown into the economic activities. So therefore government need money from somewhere. Therefore government has taken this particular step and is not breaching the fundamental right. Moreover, if we make a self analysis, then under article number 47 DPSP, it has been said that the state should take steps to reduce the consumption of intoxicants such as alcohol. And now, by levying the special fees, people will deter to consume. So, government might also be fulfilling the responsibility under Article number 47 DPSP. So, therefore, on this particular front, it can be seen that the step might be justified. Now we are into the editorial section, and this particular editorial talks that certain urgent attention is needed to be given to the foreign trade of India, otherwise there could be the problems into the long term. Now, according to the latest data, the merchandise export or the export of goods have been reduced substantially, and it has been collapsed by nearly 60%, which is worst into the last 20 years. Now, when we are talking about exports, there are only two commodities which have seen certain respite. First is the iron ore, and second is the pharmaceuticals, because there was renewed demand for the drugs such as hydroxychloroquine. And here also the growth was just 0.25%. Now guys, petroleum products also happens to be a major export commodity of India, but as there were the lower crude oil prices, on this particular front also much respite was not gained. Now, on the one hand, exports are losing out, but on the other hand, imports were consistent, and the only respite into the imports was seen due to the lower crude oil prices as well as due to the less demand. Now, due to all these things, there have been impacts onto the supply chain, as in India also there are various industries which import the raw material. Then there had been impact onto the growth prospects because entire export sector is low, and then there are also the impacts onto the future investment that will be coming into India. Therefore, the entire picture is giving a kind of a grim signal. However, seeing the lockdown, nothing is new here, and all these things were anticipated before the hand. And in this direction, also, the government has given an economic stimulus package under the aegis of Atmanirbharta Abhiyan. However, a lot of things which has been done, though they will be yielding certain positives, but largely government had missed on certain backgrounds also. Now, if we analyze the reform package, then government has said that the forbearance to few micro, small and medium enterprises will be given. Forbearance means that they need not to pay their installments. A moratorium was levied onto the EMIs. So this is good because large number of MSMEs contribute to the export sector. Apart from them, we had also seen that the 3 lakh crore economic package is also being given, so that thing will also be bringing certain respite. Now guys, though MSMEs have been catered, but nothing has been done for the exporters directly. And in this particular direction, whatever reform was taken earlier by the RBI, those only reforms have been floated as the new reforms of the government, but that was already done. Now, earlier RBI gave a 15,000 crore rupees credit line to the Exim Bank so that it can help the importers and exporters. Moreover, when we talk about importers, they were given a time limit of 6 months to complete their outward remittances. That is the things they which they have been imported for to pay back for that thing. Secondly, for the exporters, the credit that has been given to them, their time limit has been extended from 12 months to 15 months. So enhanced duration for the credit is being given. However, these are not that much radical reforms which should have been taken given the magnitude of the present crisis. And on the top of that, these ideas are repackaging of RBI. So right now the fresh ideas are needed which government might not be having. Now guys, the export sector should not be ignored because this is a sector which contributes in two ways. First of all, it contributes much of the forex reserves, and export units such as textile give large employment to lot of population because they are labor intensive. Now the garment export sector fell 91% in April, and the outcomes will be even worse for the month of May. Now guys, even the WTO is expecting that the trade flows will be going very much low. Now there are lot of countries which had imposed considerable medical and food supply barriers because they are also looking for the Atmanirbharta as India is doing. So again there will be a jeopardy for India's export sector. Now, guys, in this particular respect, India has only one silver lining, that is attracting the fresh investment which might be leaving the China because they don't want to be too much dependent on China given the uncertainties. But that kind of investment will be coming into the long term, and India cannot totally depend on them. So, therefore, into the short term also, we need certain strategy. Therefore, exporters must be given a kind of a hedge, a kind of a protection, so that they can keep alive the foreign trade in favor of India. So, guys, this was all about this particular article, and now we'll move to next. Now, guys, here's an article on Beijing's Ladakh brinkmanship. Now, this particular article talks as how China is motivated by its own insecurity, and all the actions can be traced to its own fears. Now, first of all, what do we understand by the term brinkmanship? Now, this particular term was popularized by the US Secretary of State John Foster Dulles. Now, brinkmanship means to pushing someone to the brink of war in order to take the advantages or gains, but not actually going to a war. So, guys, brinkmanship was the classic example of US's policies during the Cold War. Now, China might also be using the brinkmanship right now. But before going into that particular thing, we will see certain issues. Now, guys, first of all, China is facing a kind of a crisis of legitimacy at their home as well as at into the outside world. Now, first of all, seeing why it is facing a kind of a delegitimacy at home. Now, guys, China is an authoritarian regime which doesn't regards the right of the citizens but enjoys the kind of support because of economic growth that has came to the individuals in past few years. But now, as the global lockdown and recession is coming, that growth prospects will not be there. So kind of a fear and a kind of insecurity is rising into the citizens, which might question the legitimacy of the regime. And the second reason is China's policy into the Hong Kong, where China is imposing itself onto the Hong Kong and taking away the much liberties and rights. And this particular trend is now becoming very much powerful. So therefore, at the home there is a threat. And secondly, when we talk at the world stage, it has been levied that the China was irresponsible into the initial period and could have contained the crisis, but it did not share the information freely, due to which now the entire world is suffering. So here also there is a crisis, and now the legitimacy at both the fronts, that is home as well as at the world, is needed to be gained. So what is China's strategy here? So here is a perfect recipe to do this particular thing. First of all, you go for some external adventurism and show some ultra nationalism, and people will be impressed. Now, just for the reference, if you allow me, I will give you one example. Now, suddenly, if a strike in POK is made and the slogans of Bharat Mata Ki Jai are chanted, then people will suddenly start to see government into the legitimate light. And the same thing is happening into the China also. China is intimidating the LAC and showing to its own people that what we are doing is nothing but an endeavor into the nationalism. We are taking back what was our own. So, therefore, the attempts of China in LAC is nothing but a kind of an attempt to safeguard its own image. Now, at the world stage, also China's legitimacy has been questioned. I have told you earlier because of the withholding of information into the earlier time. But there are other things also where the US and China has come face to face. These issues are particularly because of the Hong Kong, where China wants to implement a new law and USA sees it as against democracy. Secondly, is against Taiwan. Now, China wants that Taiwan should not be recognized independently because Taiwan is the part and parcel of China. But now USA is recognizing Taiwan, due to which China is angry. Then thirdly, the 5G war is going on between the China and USA, and USA has tried to impose several sanctions on China on this particular line also. So again, the China is facing a kind of a existential crisis here. Then there are the controversies with respect to the South China Sea, where China is militarizing large number of islands, taking large number of claims, but USA has not approved the endeavors of China into the South China Sea also. So at all the portals, China is being retrograded by the USA, and China doesn't want that. So in order to re-establish its hegemony, in order to do a bang, now China is targeting India and doing the imperialistic policies into the LAC. And after that, there could even be a possibility that, fueled by its own insecurities, China can also involve into the adventurism with USA over the South China Sea. Now, USA wants free passage in South China Sea because it is an important economic route for USA. Moreover, in order to maintain the dominance into the Pacific, South China Sea is very much critical to the USA. And picking this particular topic, China can also challenge the USA in order to gain the advantages. Now, guys, remember the theory of brinkmanship, where you push a country to a war in order to gain the advantages. So the same thing has been China doing with the India, and it might be done with the USA also. Then the episode of LAC will just become a fragment into a bigger plan that China is pursuing. Now, guys, all these are the opinions of the writer that this could be the motivation behind China's action. So, it could be an alternative theory. So, that's all. And now we'll move to the next. Friends, there is one article onto the Nepal Kalapani also. But as you know, we have discussed that issue for 5 6 times. So, today we will not be taking it. Moreover, if anybody wants to see the entire history of the issue with the way forward, then you can refer to the 23rd of May newspaper analysis. The link has been provided. Friends, here's a passing reference where we will see a mapping location, that is Nehru Zoological Park, because here a leopard died when he was brought into the transit. Now, guys, Nehru Zoological Park is located into the Telangana near Hyderabad. Now, Nehru Zoological Park was also in news because recently a pair of giant Aldabra tortoise were brought here. Now, guys, these giant Aldabra tortoise are endemic to Seychelles and was given as a gift from the president of Seychelles. So, please remember the Nehru Zoological Park, an important entry. Now, friends, here's a news item where the RBI bonds have been scrapped by the government. So, we'll see what are these RBI bonds. Now, friends, first of all, bond is an example of debt. So, whenever you buy a bond, essentially you are giving a debt to a person, and therefore the person will give you some interest rate. So, whenever these bonds were subscribed, RBI used to pay an interest rate of 7.75% per annum. Earlier, the interest rate was 8%, but recently it has been reduced to 7.75% per annum. Further, these bonds have a tenure of 7 years. Now, the minimum investment in this bond is 1000 rupees, and then there is no maximum limit. You can invest as much as you want. Now, who are eligible? Only resident individuals and Hindu undivided families are eligible and can invest into this scheme. Now, the interest which will be accrued will also attract a tax. So, therefore, the actual proceed will be less than the 7.75%. Moreover, as a part of a scheme, premature withdrawals are not allowed. Now, as these kind of bonds are backed by the government and the RBI, so they are considered to be a safe investment. So, therefore, the senior citizens, they used to prefer in these kind of instruments because of surety of money as well as interest. But now, as government had scrapped it, there will be repercussions onto the senior citizens as well as other retail investors who were using the RBI bonds. Now, guys, in India, if we analyze this particular thing, there are anyhow very less opportunities to invest the money, and now taking away RBI bond might not be a good step, because people, they tend to invest into the gold and all these kind of things, due to which India faces problem such as increasing current account deficit, and now the tendency to invest in the things such as gold could further be aggravated. So, guys, this was all about this. Now we'll move to the next. Now, friends, recently an issue has erupted where the Hindi has been prescribed as the only official language into the lower courts into the Haryana. and now this particular thing has been challenged into the Supreme Court of India. Now what is the issue here? Now guys, in India, first of all, we don't have any concept of national language. However, India do have an official language, and official language is provided into the article number 343 of Indian Constitution. Under article 343, Hindi is considered to be as the official language. But initially, after the independence, up to 1965, it was said that along with Hindi, English will also continue as a link official language. But as the time came near, there were huge protests, and people wanted that English should also be the official language of India. So, therefore, in 1963, Official Language Act was passed, and according to the Official Language Act, along with Hindi, English will continue to be the official language. So, as of today, we have two official languages, one is Hindi, one other as English. Now, coming back to the issue of Haryana, what has happened here? Now, the Haryana Official Language Act 2020 has been passed, where it has been provided that Hindi will be the sole official language into the lower courts across the state. Now, this particular thing has been contended into the Supreme Court that when the two languages, that is Hindi and English, has been provided, then how only Hindi can be imposed? In this particular way, it has also been alleged that in this way, the lawyers who are fluent into the English will be discriminated with the lawyers who are fluent into the Hindi. Moreover, Haryana is an industrial hub which have various MNCs from the different countries into the region of Bahadurgarh, Manesar, Gurgaon, etc. So, into that particular situation, imposing only Hindi will not be in spirit with the constitution. Now, guys, finally, China has passed the controversial Hong Kong national security law. And as discussed yesterday, I will be taking it up into the burning issues, and with that, attachments from history, present will be taken up. So, friends, that is all. I hope you're liking the video. Thank you so much.